It was a cool, crisp Saturday morning when I first heard the news. I was shelving returned books in the quiet corner of the local library, where I work part-time, when my cell phone buzzed in my cardigan pocket. The text from my sister only contained 4 words: Uncle Ethan passed away. But in that moment, those few words upended the orderly stacks of books around me as suddenly as if an earthquake had struck the shelves. I clutched the wooden shelf to steady myself, feeling the reality settle into my mind and body. My great-uncle Ethan, the distinguished attorney I had admired since childhood for his eloquent arguments in courtrooms, was gone at age 72. Just a day earlier, he had been meticulously preparing legal documents in his home office, and now he had left this earth without warning. My 2 daughters immediately came to mind as the grief washed over me. 17-year-old Mia, my eldest, had been incredibly close with her Uncle Ethan. She had grown up enraptured by the stories of his most famous legal victories, and his encouragement had fueled her ambitions to follow in his footsteps as a lawyer one day. Just last week, Mia had been recounting to me the details of Uncle Ethan's latest high-profile case over family dinner. The way he so carefully constructed his arguments won the jury over. It was amazing, she enthused between bites of pasta. I hope I can be as skilled at courtroom law as Uncle Ethan one day. My younger daughter Ava, quieter and more sensitive at age 14, had also felt a special bond with Uncle Ethan despite his gruff exterior. He had made time to attend her middle school play last year, a gesture which had meant the world coming from the usually workaholic attorney. As I felt hot tears pooling in my eyes amongst the book stacks that Saturday morning, I quickly blinked them back, knowing I had to break this devastating news to my girls as gently as possible. I said a silent prayer for my beloved Uncle Ethan, thanking him for the hope he had given Mia and the kindness he had shown little Ava. I hoped I would honor his memory well as we grieved his sudden absence from our lives. There were many questions ahead, but for now, we would take this one wrenching day at a time. The days following Uncle Ethan's shocking death passed by in a blur of tearful embraces, somber black outfits, and hushed funeral arrangements. I had always known my great-uncle to be an imposing pillar of strength and conviction in court, commanding the room with his towering presence despite his advanced age. It was still difficult for me to connect that formidable, eloquent man with the peaceful figure now lying silently in the mahogany casket before me. As I sat in the front pew, stroking Mia's hair gently while she cried on my shoulder, my mind wandered back to the achievements that had defined Uncle Ethan's long and storied career. One of the most respected defense attorneys in the state, he had built a reputation over nearly 5 decades for his meticulous and impassioned legal strategies. He may have alienated some with his direct style inside the courtroom, but no one could doubt the brilliance of his arguments or his steadfast commitment to his clients. However, outside his illustrious career, Uncle Ethan's personal life had remained an enigma to most of our family. Though he attended the odd holiday gathering or milestone event, he tended to shy away from close emotional connections, even with my daughters, his only living nieces. His brusque, detached manner led me to believe something in his past had created barriers difficult for him to overcome. As the funeral concluded and guests began offering me their hushed condolences, I noticed a streaking young brunette woman sitting alone in the church, dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Her refined black veil and dress contrasted starkly with her obvious youth, and I realized with a start that this must be Clara, Uncle Ethan's second and much younger wife. Though they had been married for over a decade, Clara rarely accompanied Uncle Ethan to family events. I had only met her briefly at my cousin James's wedding years ago, recalling vague mentions of fertility struggles from others in the family. As I hesitated over whether to approach Clara, she stood gracefully and slipped out a side door of the church into the autumn chill, disappearing as abruptly as she had arrived. In the weeks following Uncle Ethan's funeral, I watched Mia throw herself into her schoolwork with renewed vigor. Now a senior in high school, she spent long hours every night poring over LSAT study guides and law school admissions texts with an almost feverish intensity. She spoke frequently about wanting to carry on Uncle Ethan's legacy, perhaps by interning at his old firm Pearson & Wilson. I gently reminded her not to push herself too hard, but I understood that focusing on her future career goals was likely her way of grieving her great-uncle's absence. One blustery Tuesday evening, as we finished washing dishes after dinner, Mia turned to me, her brows knitted with concern. "Mom, I was going through some of Uncle Ethan's old case files that his law firm couriered over, and I found some questionable details," she said. She described a case where Uncle Ethan had defended a corporate executive accused of serious ethical breaches. By meticulously highlighting procedural errors, Ethan had gotten the exec acquitted on a technicality. "It just doesn't seem right. Did Uncle Ethan ever talk to you about pushing ethical boundaries to win?" Mia asked. I sighed, racking my brain on how to respond appropriately. Before I could formulate an answer, I heard a rap at the front door. We opened it to find Mr. Stanley, one of the senior partners from Uncle Ethan's old law firm. "Good evening, Lily. Mia," he said solemnly. "I was hoping we might speak about Ethan's estate and legacy at the firm. May I come in?" As we seated ourselves in the living room, Mr. Stanley turned to Mia. "I know these past few weeks have likely shaken your view of the legal profession," he said gently. "I considered your Uncle Ethan not just a colleague but a mentor and friend. Perhaps I can offer some guidance and perspective around balancing principles with legal strategies in trying cases." I observed Mia's expression shifting to one of relief. My heart swelled knowing my driven young daughter would have support moving forward to shape her moral compass, perhaps the greatest legacy Uncle Ethan had left behind. I crept quietly down the stairs, not wanting to wake anyone. Since it was Saturday, my partner Max and our daughters could sleep in, but I had woken up early, my mind swirling with unfinished business. Even months after Uncle Ethan's death, new legal documents and papers still occasionally arrived to be reviewed and sorted through. I filled the kettle to make some chamomile tea, hoping it might calm my restless thoughts. As I waited for the water to boil, I noticed a thin manila folder tucked halfway under some cookbooks on the kitchen counter. It was simply labeled Ava in my sister's graceful cursive hand. Curious, I opened the folder to find several legal forms concerning Uncle Ethan's estate. Why had my sister marked these for Ava? Just then, I heard soft footsteps as Ava padded into the kitchen, yawning. "Morning, sweetheart," I said. "Want some breakfast?" As Ava nodded, I gestured to the folder. "Looks like you got some mail from Aunt Mary. Something about Uncle Ethan's estate." Ava's eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. "Whoa, these documents say that Uncle Ethan left me some sort of educational trust in his will, but some of the details are redacted." She pointed to some blacked-out sections, my eyebrows raised in surprise. "Well, it certainly seems your Uncle Ethan wanted to make sure you also had support pursuing your goals," I said, smiling. I made a mental note to phone Aunt Mary later for more information. In all the drama surrounding Ethan's death, I had nearly forgotten about my shy younger daughter. Perhaps this was a blessing in disguise, a way for her to feel included. I squeezed Ava's shoulder proudly as we examined the forms together over steaming mugs. I slid into the firm leather chair across from Mr. Stanley's imposing mahogany desk, grasping the armrests tightly to steady my nerves. When the senior partner had urgently requested this private meeting, I knew it likely involved Uncle Ethan's complicated estate, given the towering stacks of legal files occupying every inch of his office. Mr. Stanley cleared his throat gravely. "Lily, I'm afraid there have been some concerning developments relating to Ethan's will," he said, steepling his fingers contemplatively. "Specifically, we have had an angry inquiry from a Ms. Clara Hendricks, Ethan's former wife, contesting her exclusion from the will." I blinked in surprise, blurting out, "Former wife? But I thought—" Mr. Stanley raised a hand solemnly. "Yes, it seems in his final months, Ethan kept private that he divorced Ms. Hendricks. We can now confirm they had irreconcilable differences. However, Miss Hendricks feels entitled to a portion of Ethan's wealth given their decade together, and she is threatening legal action against you and your daughters if her demands are not met quickly." I gripped the letter tighter, feeling light-headed. How could Uncle Ethan abandon Clara so suddenly after so many years? And what did she hope to gain by pursuing us over the estate? As I processed this revelation, Mr. Stanley's secretary rapped sharply on the office door. "Sir, there is a Ms. Clara Hendricks here demanding to speak with you immediately." My heart dropped into my stomach. Our legal troubles were just beginning. The blaring ring of the telephone jarred me from sleep. I fumbled in the darkness to answer it, my heart already pounding with anxiety after the confrontation with Clara weeks earlier. "Hello?" I mumbled groggily, squinting against the glare of the bedside clock to see it was nearly 2 a.m. "So sorry to call at this hour, Lily," came the familiar gravelly voice of Mr. Stanley. "But I'm afraid another rather urgent matter has arisen regarding Ethan's estate that requires your attention." I sat up slowly, my mouth going dry. "What is it now?" I whispered hoarsely. Mr. Stanley sighed heavily into the receiver. "Well, we received a letter this evening from an individual calling themselves Alex Wyatt. This Wyatt claims to have been an estranged, illegitimate child of Ethan's from an old acquaintance. They are questioning the will's legitimacy and demanding a portion of their supposed father's wealth." I was now wide awake, shock coursing through me at this new revelation. My mind reeled, imagining aloof Uncle Ethan keeping such an inflammatory secret that had returned to haunt us. "Lily, are you still there?" came Mr. Stanley's baritone over the phone. Yes, sorry, Mr. Stanley," I stammered. "I was just blindsided. We know so little of Uncle Ethan's past relationships. Is there any credibility to these claims?" I heard shuffling pages across the line. "Difficult to evaluate fully yet, but we cannot rule out Ethan had a private life and arrangements unknown to even his closest kin. I suggest we meet first thing to determine appropriate action." I whispered affirmatively before hanging up, but no more sleep would come to me that night, my mind spinning at the prospect of yet another hidden aspect of Uncle Ethan's past that could upend everything. I slid into the firm leather chair across from Mr. Stanley's imposing mahogany desk for the second time that week, feeling the weight of sleepless nights settle heavily on my shoulders. My mind kept returning to the mysterious Alex Wyatt's claims of being Ethan's secret offspring, even as we worked to resolve Clara's threats. Before I could query Mr. Stanley again about any updates, I heard rushed footsteps coming down the hallway towards his office. Suddenly, his heavy wooden door swung open to reveal none other than my daughter, Mia, slightly out of breath and clutching her book bag. "Mia, what are you doing here?" I asked, standing up quickly. She brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ears. "Sorry, Mom, I know you're in a meeting, but I just came from school and had to talk to you right away," she said breathlessly. I noticed she kept glancing anxiously down at a crumpled newspaper clipping poking out of her bag. My brows furrowed with concern. "What is it, sweetheart?" "Come in, sit down," I soothed. Mia turned to Mr. Stanley apprehensively as she took a seat next to me. "Go on, dear. You know Mr. Stanley is practically family," I added gently. Mia took a deep breath. "Well, I was researching Uncle Ethan's law firm for a school assignment on legal ethics, and I uncovered something deeply troubling. We need to talk immediately." I paced the living room restlessly, unable to focus on the novel I had abandoned on the coffee table. The startling revelations from Mia about Uncle Ethan's law firm's unethical practices still plagued my thoughts days later. Mr. Stanley had been stunned, speechless, as Mia confronted him with the evidence of obscured conflicts of interest and murky political dealings she had uncovered. Just then, Ava emerged from the basement office, clutching a stack of folders to her chest. "Mom, do you have a minute? I was going through more of Uncle Ethan's financial statements and I found something weird," she said tentatively. I gestured to the sofa, eager for a distraction from my troubled musings. "Of course, sweetie, show me what you got." Ava rifled through printed emails and bank notices anxiously. "Well, I don't fully understand all this legal and financial stuff, but it looks like Uncle Ethan maybe moved around a lot of money between accounts around the time he got divorced." She pointed out some strange transfers and opaque holding companies. I felt my pulse quicken as I grasped the implications of what Ava had revealed. Just then, we heard the front door open as Max arrived home from work. Noticing our furrowed brows, he asked, "Rough day for my two favorite researchers?" I met Max's gaze. Actually, I was just thinking we need your software engineering brain to analyze all of the data around Uncle Ethan's finances Ava keeps uncovering. I looked at them both meaningfully. It's time we get some answers. Ava grinned as Max rolled up his sleeves, clearly eager to lend his technical skills to untangling this ever-evolving mystery. I tapped my fingertips anxiously on the kitchen table as Max sat hunched over his laptop, his brow furrowed in concentration. Code and algorithms that were Greek to me flew across the screen as he sifted through the monumental data from Uncle Ethan's financial records. "Anything useful yet?" I asked, peering over Max's shoulder as I set a cup of coffee next to him. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Well, the transfers are definitely suspicious, but I need more context. What do we actually know about Uncle Ethan's career history?" I racked my brain, realizing that beyond the well-worn stories of his courtroom triumphs, much of his professional past was a mystery. Just then, we heard the front door open and close again, accompanied by shuffling footsteps. Mia trudged into the kitchen, her shoulders slumped under the weight of her bulging backpack. Noticing the data on Max's computer screen, she asked flatly, "Still unraveling Uncle Ethan's chaotic finances?" Before I could respond, she sank into a chair at the table, letting her bag slide to the floor. "Actually, sweetie, we could use your perspective," I ventured gently. "Were there any stories or rumors that might explain this money trail your uncle was weaving?" Mia contemplated silently as I took her hand, hoping to provide some maternal comfort amidst the unending revelations that had disillusioned my idealistic daughter. I straightened my black dress in the spotless courtroom bathroom, staring at my weary reflection as I prepared to testify about Uncle Ethan's volatile estate. Over half a year had passed since that life-altering phone call about his sudden passing. Today, the probate litigation Mr. Stanley had ominously warned of had finally commenced. Uncle Ethan's jilted widow Clara, his alleged secret offspring Alex Wyatt, and other figures from his shadowy past encircled the same courtroom where Ethan had built his storied career. And here I stood, bewildered at the center of it all. The revelations we had uncovered of opaque financial dealings, discreet political favors, and a web of powerful cronies happy to shield Ethan's indiscretions painted a picture at odds with the principled mentor I thought I knew. Both my daughters had been profoundly shaped, in different ways, by wrestling with their great-uncle's complicated legacy. As I clutched my purse tightly, steeling myself before entering the courtroom, I wondered if all the legal arguments and maneuvering over possessions and wealth somehow diminished the humanity at the story's core, a flawed but nevertheless beloved guardian now lost to us. In questioning what he left behind, had we somehow forgotten the connections we shared when he was still beside us? Just then, Mr. Stanley stepped out of the heavy wooden doors and met my gaze with a nod. Taking a deep breath, I smoothed my dress once more before striding forward. The time for revelations and reckonings had come, but I knew that no matter what happened today, our family would emerge intact on the other side.